Hello students, today we will discuss structured query language, that is SQL. In our previous tutorial we have discussed DBMS, database management system, database, what are the advantages of database, what are the disadvantages of database, and what are the different keys that we are using in a particular database and how database can be organized. So today we will discuss here, that is structured query language. That is basically a query language that is used to communicate with the database. So first of all, what is SQL? Here we know one thing, that if we have to just communicate with a particular database, we need a particular language so we can easily communicate with the database. Why we are communicating with the database? Because we have to insert the values in a database, we have to update, we have to manipulate different values in a database. So for that purpose we need a language so we can communicate with the database. So basically SQL, structured query language, is a language that is used to communicate with the database. Sometimes we are using MySQL. Why we are using MySQL? Basically MySQL is a DBMS, database management system. So here one main difference is there, what is database and what is database management system. If we will differentiate both the terms, we know database is a collection of records, or we can say that a database is a collection of interrelated or well organized records. And DBMS, database management system. Database management system is a system that is used to manage the database. So DBMS is a database management system, a system that is used to manage the database. So basically MySQL is a DBMS, database management system, but SQL is a structured query language. So both the terms are different. So we have other databases also, like we have Oracle, we have Informatics, we have Postgres. So there are different categories of databases that we can use. Beside this we have Microsoft Access is also there, that is also a database. So one of the main advantages of SQL, or one of the best feature of SQL, is that SQL is free to use and you can download it from www.mysql.com. So basically SQL is a freely available, that is a open source software, so we can download it from mysql.com. So now we will just see what are the different advantages of SQL, or why we are using SQL. Because for communicating with the database we need some query language, so that query language should be easy to use, or that is open source, so we can freely download. So now we will see what are the different advantages of SQL, structured query language. First advantage of SQL is that is easy to use. Our SQL is easy to use. Why we are saying that it is easy to use? Because SQL query language is similar to our English language. Because whatever the common sentence we are speaking, our SQL language is also like this only. Suppose let's take an example. One as query is there, like describe table. Means we have to describe the structure of a table. We have to write like this, describe table. This is a simple query language, so that is easy to use because that is same as our English language. Just we have to follow some syntax. Otherwise, that commands are simple only. Second one, we have no coding required, because we have already predefined keywords are there, predefined commands are there. We have to just follow the commands only and we can easily interact with the database. That's why no coding required or no further coding required for a particular communicating with the database. Third, we have portable. One feature is there, portability. Portability means that SQL can be executed anywhere. We can execute it on mainframes, we can execute it on PCs, we can execute it on laptops or any other whatever the gadgets we have, we can easily execute this SQL on that systems. That's why it is known as portable. Portability feature is there. Fourth advantage, we have high speed. High speed means whenever we will execute any query, within the seconds we will get the results. However, irrespective of the database, size of database, we can execute SQL query fastly. We can get the information, we can get the results very fast. Fifth, we have complete language for database. Why it is known as a complete language for database? Because to communicate with the database, basically we need, or while we are communicating with any database, we have to insert the values or we have to update the values, we have to delete the values. So basically these commands we have to follow. So all these commands are available in structured query language. That's why it is known as a complete language for database. Sixth, we have multiple data views. Multiple data views means, suppose we have some database is there. In database we have different tables are there. Suppose we have a table which contains many fields, many attributes, or we can say we have many columns. But for different users, different requirements are there. Let's take an example of a bank account. Suppose a customer is having an account. In particular account, that customer have different informations. So while a customer login through net banking, different columns will be showed or different informations will be showed there. But if the same account is accessed by some bank employee, so some different informations or more informations will be there. So for every different user, we have different view of record. Like suppose we will take an example of our Never Skip app. Our Never Skip app contains all the information regarding the staff, regarding the students, regarding the other activities, fee structure. But in a parent app, only you can see a particular information of a student only. But if we will use management app, in management app the record is same, but we can say see the some more informations regarding a student. So for every particular user we have different views of our data. Then seventh advantage, we have client server language. Client server language means, suppose while we are accessing the internet, let's take an example. While accessing the internet, I'll type URL gmail.com. That means I have to communicate to the server, Gmail server. While I'll request for the web page, the Gmail server will respond to that page because I am a client. That Gmail server is responding the whatever the requests I have made. So that is the server. So that is basically a client server. In the same way, while we are communicating with the database, we are writing some queries and the server or database is responding. So in the same manner, this SQL is act like a client server language. Last one, we have internet usage. We can use SQL on internet also. Why on internet? Because there are some specific applications. Suppose a user is communicating with the application or some application, and that application is communicating with the database. So basically we have three-tier architecture. Three-tier architecture means we have first level we have client or user, then second level we have application, and third level we have database. So first user is communicating with the application program and application is requesting to the database. That's why it is known as a three-tier structure. In the same way, client server model can be known as a two-tier structure because client is there and server is there. So that's all about introduction to structured query language and the advantages of SQL. So our next topic in structured query language is classification of SQL statements. Basically, SQL statements are classified into different categories. What are the different categories we have? That is DDL, that is data definition language. Second one we have data manipulation language, that is DML. Third one we have utility statements. Fourth one we have transaction control language, that is TCL. And fifth one we have database control language, that is DCL. So basically SQL statements are classified into 5 different categories. So we will discuss one by one what is the purpose of different categories, what are the different examples of each categories. First of all, that is data definition language. First we will see what is the purpose of data definition language. What is the purpose of this category? So data definition language, that is DDL. Basically DDL commands are used to design the structure of a table or a database. If we want to design a structure of a table or database, or we want to change the structure or of table or a database, then we have to use data definition language. So basically to change or to create the structure of a database or a table, we need data definition language. So different commands under this category are create database. Suppose we want to create a database, we have to use create command. Suppose we have to change the database, in that we have to use alter command, alter database. Suppose we have to create a table, in that case we have to use create table command. Suppose we have to change the table or change the structure of a table, in that case we have to use alter table command. Suppose we want to delete the table or delete the database, in that case we have to use a drop table or drop database. Basically there are two commands, one is drop and other one is delete. But first of all we have drop command here. So purpose of drop command is to delete the structure of a table or a database. So basically drop command is different from delete command. So second one we have data manipulation language, that is known as DML. So what is the purpose of DML? DML statements or DML commands are basically used for manipulating the values in a table. Suppose we have created a table in a database and we have to change the values, or we have to manipulate the values of a table, or we have to update the values of a table. In that case we will use data manipulation language. So different commands under these categories are delete command. Suppose we want to delete some values. So basically here one thing is there, delete and drop. So basic difference between delete command and drop command is that a drop command is used to delete the complete structure of a table, whereas a delete command is only used to delete the values from a table. That is not deleting the structure of a table, but here only we are deleting the values from a table. For that purpose we are using delete command. Suppose we have to insert new values in a table, in that case we will use insert command. We have to replace some values, in that case we will use replace command. Suppose we have to view the structure of a table, or we have to select some values from a table, in that case we will use select command. beside this we have truncate command also and update command also. So update command is used for updating the values. Suppose we have to update some values, suppose some marks we have to update, or we have to update the address of a particular student, address information we have to update in a table. In that case we can use update command. In the same way we have one more command is there, that is truncate command, that is different from all these others. So we will discuss these commands while we having a practical session. So third command or the third category is that is utility statements. Beside DDL and DML we have one more statement that is utility. Basically what is a utility? That is some useful commands that is used for some giving some information about a database or a table. So here what are the different statements we are using? We have describe, explain, help and use. So suppose if you we want to know the structure of a particular table, in that case we can use the describe command to see the structure of a table. Structure of table means how many columns a table is having, or what are the different data types of a particular table, or what are the different keys we are using. So complete structure can be known using the describe command. In the same way we have explain command also. And if we need some help regarding, if we don't know about any commands, or in between we have some problem, we can use help command also. One more command is there, that is use command. Suppose we have different databases and we want to use a particular database, because while we are creating a tables, or while we are creating a particular record, we have to use some specific database. For that database, whatever the database we have to use, first we have to use that use command. After that, using the use command, we can create, that means particular database is selected. Suppose we have three databases there, one is test, one is SQL, school, and third one is record, and we want to create further tables in a school database. So we have to use the use school command, because if we will select school database, then after that whatever the tables we are going to create, that will be created in a school database. So for that purpose we are using utility statements. Fourth, we have transaction control language, that is TCL language. Basically whatever the you can see there are some any queries whatever we are executing, that is basically a transactions. So here for that purpose we are using TCL commands, transactions control language commands. Let's take an example of a bank ATM machine. While you are taking out the money, or while you are just depositing the money, so some query is getting executed, that are the basically known as transactions. So in that case, whether a particular transaction is successful or unsuccessful, or that is failed, in that case we have to use commands like commit. For successful transaction we have to use commit command. For unsuccessful transaction we have to use rollback command. If we have to start the transaction, in that case we have to use start transition. We can set the transactions, we can lock the tables, we can unlock the tables, and we can put the save points. Save points means basically suppose we are performing a transactions from starting to end point, but in between at some point our transaction get failed. So that particular point where our transactions failed, that we can create as a save point. So next time while we are executing the statements, instead of starting from the base, we can start from that save point. So basically for that purpose we are using save point. Last one, we have database control language. Database, basically these commands are used for administration purposes. Administration purpose means suppose for a particular user we have to assign some privileges, we have to assign some features in that case, or we have to grant some permissions. We have to assign some permissions, we have to change the mode of that particular file. In that case we can use grant, deny and revoke commands. We know that for a particular setting a permission for a particular user, we have to grant the permission, and if suppose we want to just deny the services of a particular user, in that case we can use the deny command. So that's all about different categories of SQL statements. So basically, according to the classification, we have 5 different categories of SQL statements. First one, that is DDL, that stands for data definition language. Second one, we have DML, that is data manipulation language. Third one, we have utility commands, or we can say that utility statements. Fourth one, we have transaction control language, that is TCL. And fifth one, we have database control language, that is DCL. So that are the different categories of SQL statements. In our practical approach, we will use all these commands for creating a database, creating a table, updating a table. So all these commands we will use in our practical session. So our next topic is rules for SQL commands. So what are the different rules we have to follow for writing SQL commands? First of all, we have for constructing valid statements. While we are creating a particular statement, what are the different rules we have to follow? What is the first rule? That is, first one is not case sensitive. SQL statements or SQL commands are not case sensitive. Not case sensitive means we can write the statements either in the lowercase or uppercase. Both the statements have the same meaning. That's why we are saying it as a not case sensitive. For example, suppose we have one example of SQL statements. Select star from student. This is a command to fetch the information of student table. So we can write this command either in the uppercase, or we can write this command in a lowercase. Both the statements have the same meaning. So first rule is SQL is not a case sensitive. Second one, we have can be in one or more lines. We can write the SQL statements in more than, suppose we are writing something from here and then next we can write in the next line also. But after writing the statement, we have to use semicolons. Semicolons means our statement is getting complete. One statement is getting complete. So we can write the SQL statement in more than one line, but we have to terminate it with the semicolon symbol. Third rule, we have keywords cannot be abbreviated in more than one line. Means suppose we are writing a statement, and in that case, suppose we are writing select statement. Suppose we have written here SE and the remaining command in the next line. So because select is a keyword, alter is a keyword, delete is a keyword. So basically all the keywords that cannot be abbreviated, and that should be in a single line only. Fourth rule, we have only one statement can be current at any given time in the buffer, but you can write continuous statements using semicolon. Means at one time in a buffer only one statement is there. Only one statement can be executed at a time, but in the same line you can write multiple statements, but you have to write with the semicolon. Means each statement you have to complete with semicolon. Suppose you have written one command, select star from student, then after also you can write another statement, but after that statement you have to put semicolon. Fifth one, we have write command either full or first 4 characters. Means you can write the complete command like we have command select. You can either write the full command, or we can only use first 4 characters of this command. So both are acceptable. So these are the 5 different rules that we have to follow for constructing a valid command in SQL. Means while we are executing SQL commands, SQL queries, we have to take care of these 5 rules. If you will take care of these 5 rules, then there will be no error. Beside these valid statement rules, we have one more thing, that is for naming a SQL table. Suppose you have to name a SQL table, or you have to name a column for a table, or you have to name a attribute of a table, in that case also you have to follow some rules and regulations. What are the different points that you have to follow? First of all, we have name must begin with letter. Whatever the table name you are giving or whatever the column name you are giving in a table, that name must begin with letter. That is either a capital letters, or we can say uppercase or lowercase. So for example, I am writing a name of a table like student, so that is acceptable because that begins with character. In the same way, if I'll write to student, because starting with number, that is not acceptable, that's why that is crossed, that is not acceptable. In the same case, if I'll write 0 info, 0 starting with number, so that is also not acceptable. So whatever the name we are giving to a table or a column, that should start with, or that should begin with letter. Second, contains letters, digits and special characters. Means our table name or column name can contain letters, digits or special characters. Means that name can contain digits also, characters also, special characters also. Here we have only 3 special characters. First one, that is underscore. Second one, we have dollar sign. Third one, we have hash. But mostly we are using underscore only. We are not using this. So while writing or while using the special characters, mostly underscore is chosen instead of dollar or hash. So that is recommended. The third we have, means suppose I have to write the name, or we have to name some table. Suppose student info, student or stud space info. In between there is a gap is there, but that is gap is also known as a space. So space is not, that is also a type of special character, but that is not applicable because here we can use only underscore. So in that case, what we have to write, stud instead of space we have to specify underscore info, that is acceptable. If I'll remove this underscore, that is not acceptable. So third rule we have, can use either uppercase or lowercase characters. In the same case like writing valid statements, here also while naming a table or naming a column name, in that case we can use uppercase also, lowercase also, because that is a not case sensitive. Fourth point we have, or fourth rule we have, length of a table must be up to 30 characters. Means while deciding length of a table or while naming a table name, in that case the name of table must be 30 characters only, not beyond 30 characters. That is limited to 30 characters. So size of the table name, that is limited to 30 characters only. Fifth point we have to consider, that is name must not be SQL reserved word. That means keywords cannot be used as a name in the table. Means suppose we have to name a table, we cannot name table name as select, or we cannot some table name as a delete, because delete, select, alter, update, all these are keywords. That are the keywords, or that are the statements that are already reserved in SQL. So that's why we cannot use these keywords. Besides keywords, we can use any naming we can use, but we have to follow these 5 rules. So that's all about different rules for SQL statements. First we have rules for constructing valid statements, then we have rules for naming a SQL table. After this session, we are going to start with practical session, that is how to create a database and how to create a table and how to use different commands. So in our next tutorial, we are going to see the practical session.